Fabio. Greg, just watched your video that you just put up this afternoon on 90% lose and 10% win, and I agree with you. Obviously, it's very clear, and the reason is two things, I think, and they're all really tied to the same thing, which is ego, and that is over-trading and not being able to take a loss. I think are the two biggest things that, for me, have always applied to my biggest drawdowns. When I press when I'm wrong versus getting out, reevaluating, and starting fresh. So let's talk.
I tell you, the one thing I meant to say, I should have put it right at the beginning, is, I always ask people that, I've unsuccessfully tried to help people trading a million times. It's never worked, essentially. And the question you always have to ask is, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? And they're so vastly different, and I can't believe I did that whole video. I should have just, right at the beginning, should have opened with the text. I used to in the other editing know how to make it print that out like a typewriter. Right. And that's what I really meant to start with.
But and it's true. I mean, you can't, there's many times where I have a overall bearish premise, i.e. today, and you got to get long on the profile because the profile says we're going higher today.
Yeah,
simple as that.
You gotta play the cards you're being dealt. I mean, it's if you're playing low ball, you're playing low ball. If you're playing, hold 'em, you gotta play the hand you're being dealt. And that, I've been a perennial bear my whole career.
Right.
And the good news is that's kept me out of some major trouble in terms of the outliers. It's also prohibited me from enjoying the majority of the time that the stock market is actually going up. The market goes up, and then takes back all the money from the people that are slowly making it, and they lose it all in a day or two. And, you get stopped out at the lows. But I'm not taking any losses. I mean, I won't. I mean, that's essentially my posture right now is I just am not putting on any trades. I can't ride into the complete ditch either. I'd rather be long an option and place my bet and lose all the money that I committed to the idea, or be in these ratios that I'm willing to add to in the bonds until I'm right. I'm short 2-year bond again, and I'll ride it till, if interest rates go to 0.20, I'm going to add more. If they go to 0.15, I'm going to add twice as much. If they go to 0.05, I'm going to shove with all my might. And if it goes to 0, I'm going to double the entire position again, and, bring it. Go to negative interest rates. I dare you.
But that's your strategy, and you have a max drawdown during that entire period, Greg, and you've laid it out. As you said, you're willing to go to that length on that trade. It's not like you're thinking about it after the fact. You're thinking about it now before the trade has begun. You're thinking about it as you're going through it. You have a strategy that keeps you in the game through that whole thing. We should talk about this. You have a little bit, you talked about ego in your video. You have to have a little bit of forethought and ego to get into this game, and it is just a game. But
my whole thing is, as long as you've set aside the entire amount. I mean, that's what I mean about finite risk. Is if I was just talking to you earlier, if somebody would tell me the right ratio, it's not on my list, so I can't do it for the next quarter, but. I might miss this, but I think you could buy natural gas and then buy UNG puts.
Right.
But you know what? There's still a pitfall. What if they halted trading and the UNG puts for a length of time that was longer, and then your hedge wasn't there for the nat gas, and then it imploded? But I guess it could only go to 0. I mean, nat gas at $2. It's just so interesting. I'm sure there's a reason for it. But, I'm a contrarian, so my job would be to figure out a way to get long natural gas and be hedged. And I know that
Greg, Greenspan said back in, 02 or 3, that natural gas, when it was $4, was going to 2. What he didn't tell you was that it was going to $15.70 before it went to 2.
I didn't ever even know that. I traded it. I never look at the price. I have people send me notes. Can you believe China? Look at what this guy's saying. And I'm like, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I have this one guy that just pings me all day about China. I mean, other than, I like the food. If I lived in, if I were in San Francisco, I'd go to Chinatown and get some food. I barely know any Chinese people. Why would I talk about China? It means nothing to volatility or bonds. I mean, the only two arenas that I travel in are these two areas. And, if somebody sends me something on treasuries or, look, it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the world was coming to an end, rates are going up, there's no QEs. I mean, everybody can't get out of the bonds. That's it. The bubble has burst, and now here we are all the way back to the peak levels. I mean, I'm buying 5, selling 10s at higher levels than I've ever done it. I mean, they let me completely out and let me get completely back in.
Right.
I mean, anybody that didn't pick up that money, that was the lowest hanging fruit you could ever have. I mean, you're just laying on a lounge chair, like out there by the pool, and the trees just coming down to where you're just reaching out and just picking fruit like this, and nobody wanted to take the trade. It was the easiest money ever made. People talk about these idiots' performance, these fraud, Warren Buffett, Einhorn guys. Oh, they're making 8% a year for 20 years. I just made 20 years of their return on one little trade that I had simple. It's so stupid.
So, Greg, let me ask you. You talk about the ego and
talk about ego, right? I just did. I mean, reality, right?
So, let me talk about it, because you got to check yourself every day. This game is about managing the guy in the mirror. It's not about me versus you versus the Fed, me and you versus the treasuries. It's me versus the guy in the mirror. And that's really what it comes down to in the egoless piece of it. This is what the greats, Tudor Jones, are awesome at, is these guys know what the risk is. They get out when it hits it, and they're not afraid to get back in and or go the other way. But it really takes the objective component, that egoless piece, has to be there before you can get into this game and be successful. So how do you do it?
Well, I mean, I think you write down that sentence. Do you want to be right, or do you want to make money? I mean, if you have to be right, if you're convinced that Google's going to be 700 today, and you're going to lay lumber to it, I mean, go ahead. I mean, I'm not going to play some $600 stock to begin with. I sit and I look and I go, God, I'm not going to play that or any stock for that matter, because I think I lose edge, and when I'm right, I don't pay too much money in taxes and all the things we talk about all the time. But from a pure ego perspective, I mean, I want both. I want to be right and get paid.
Yeah, but you're like me, and I don't really like to trade a lot. I mean, if I trade once a day or 2 times, every 3 days, that's a lot for me. I don't like to be in the market a lot.
I'd love to trade a lot if it was available. It's right. Just the problem is the true setups are not, I'm only going to go after the low hanging fruit because, I'm only going to expose myself to, X amount. I'd love to shove and do a bunch more 2 years right now, but, I have an order and above. And if they reach, we get to 0.20 on the yield on the 2 year, I will be loading up. There's just no advantage. When did you come to the point, Greg, when you realized that you didn't have to participate to win? Well, I've lost $1 million in single days 3 times.
Give me a little. Were they all the similar instances? I mean, were the reasons the same?
No, I don't think so. I think it has a lot to do with the position you're at in your life in terms of what goals you're trying to make. I mean, I'd love to make a very, very big hit on these 2 years, and I think I'm really right, but I'll never be there long enough. I got out all the bonds a couple of weeks ago, so I recognize my limitations, and my limitations are I'm only going to be able to make these little hits, but I make them so consistently that I'm just not taking losses. I mean, I have enough capital in the account to bully my way out of essentially any trade. Right. And so, that's where my mindset is. Other people that are out there being aggressive that want to be billionaires, I mean, they're going to have to take risks like the kinds I took in the 90s and 2000. And you talk about getting your ego in check. You're talking about a different game. That's but you've got this is kind of where I think you and I are similar in this respect.
to me, the game now is not about being right. I'm as perma-bearish as you are, but I don't really care anymore. I've turned off all the noise, all the TV, all the Chinese analysts, Instagram, blah 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 blah. Just I don't care anymore. I'm not apathetic, but to me, it's just I'm coming in, placing my bets, throughout the week, the 1 or 2, 3, 4, or 5 that I may make, taking my money, but I'm good with that now. I don't need to be the billionaire, the big BSD, and do these things. So, what was it in your career?
Sensed by what happens to people, though, and I mean that was my whole exact idea and premise to start Scope Labs is that, when you get this guy, Keith McCullough trading pretend monopoly money, he seems like a nice guy. For $200 a day, he's willing to put on a suit and tie and go into the studio. Gartman goes on every day to get his $200 because he needs the $200. I mean, this guy's wrong on every single market call. Zero Hedge did a thing about it today. So, my whole thing is look, I guess I'm so far out of the game. I mean, nobody has the patience, I guess, to do my trades. Go short the 2 years and go into a coma. You can trade the 5 and 10. I mean, the things I do, and, I'll be out before you even know what hit you, and then you'll say, why? I thought you were in the trade. No, I mean, this used to happen to me all the time. One of the best traders I know, I call him, he goes, I hate the market here. I'm going to get short. I get short, and then the market goes, I call him, he goes, no, I flipped along. Right. I'd be like, well, you can't go tell everybody everything all the time.
No,
and that's what you were saying. So it's the commitment to the idea, the randomness. There's always something to do.
Yeah,
I mean, there's always a trade to do.
There are always trades to do, and the beautiful thing is, I think but I think my mental scape has changed, and I'm hearing you say the same thing. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think your profile has changed, and you're comfortable with where you are. And like you said, you don't need to ride that trade from the top to the bottom anymore. You're fine taking little nibbles and going back into your corner, and that's what makes Greg satisfied. It's not making X dollars. It is making the trade, doing it, living the fight, and coming back and do it again. That is what feeds you, and that is what we're good at. I can change on a dime. That's why all this, all the Twitter stuff and everything, it's like, I can change my mind 2 times in a minute sometimes and still not put on a trade and I don't care. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I admit I'm wrong. Yesterday was a perfect example. I got long in the morning on the SPOOs, was wrong for about 5 points, which was exactly what I put for my stop, and I reversed because the market reversed, and I got short and it made about 10. I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, I think that people, all in all, I guess the whole video, the key to it was planning. I actually included my notes in a little picture and everything, and it's in Greg Speak, so people probably couldn't understand it. I almost didn't. But the plan is in place, and the plan didn't include natural gas. And now I see natural gas as an ARB, and, I'm going to miss this opportunity.
This plan?
Yeah, that one there. I'm going to miss this opportunity. And you know what? If somebody else wants to do it, I'd help them work on the ratio. But
I have a similar plan. That's it.
Oh, yeah, mine's a lot prettier than that. But just like my charts are prettier than everyone else's. But, I have that volatility thing. I can work on that till the cows come home to make an S&P system. But then, what would I do with the S&P system? I'd have to try to sell it or lease it out, and then then there's business, and I can't figure out who owes me money, and it doesn't work for me. But I can continue to bang out the Scope Lab stuff, and So
the bottom line here is, Greg, is quite simple. Do you want to make money, or do you want to be right? And that's it.
That is the key.
And you know what? I can be wrong and make money, and I can live with that. Can you live with that, Greg?
As long as my account grows, that's all I care about.
I
guess that's it. He goes out of it to that extent. There's the fist pumping days. Today's a fist pumping day because I was not committed to the leg down, and so I was able to strip my volatility off 2 days ago and pat myself on the back. Hey, look, it's a little watches. It's a personal high five. I just I'm happy about it.
When the VIX goes from 13 to 22, it's time to leave. It's not a problem.
If I run around getting omnipotent, then that's where ego would get me. That's where the risk is I would go crank up the size. My model doesn't allow me to get a lot bigger right here. I've already allocated. My allocation for the quarter. And, next quarter, if I want to do, 40 lots instead of, 20 lot entrances, I can up the sizes, My tranches will grow, with the size of the account. But, that 10% just keeps turning into a bigger number. And so, my money grows, exponentially that way.
Right.
But, I'm only using a little bit of capital to do this stuff. There's so much leverage involved with these futures.
Yeah, and again, this is what I always try to explain to people. Trading accounts are different from, your sit and spin, sitting in the bond account. So make sure you know the difference is always what I say. And I know you agree with this, Greg. Trading
options. They learn options and they say, well, I was going to do 50,000 in the stock, and they go buy 1,000 call options and their money expires. And, someday when we have a lot of time, I'll tell you the story about the Upjohn takeover. I had a client I explained options to. He bought all these call options and then they expired. They were off his statement. This is back in the retail days. And then he used to call me up. He just couldn't believe that they were gone. And then a year later, he called me back. He said, there they are. The Upjohn, the $40 calls are back. They're worth $4. I want to sell them. He was trying to sell them through my sales assistant. She's like, you're not long ago. He goes, I am. He just couldn't get it.
He didn't understand the expiration date. Got it.
I think I probably lost slowly $1 million in playing the Upjohn takeover over the years. Just, I must have thrown 50,000 at it at least 20 times. But, that's ego. I couldn't let the takeover happen without me. And eventually it did. I wasn't there when it happened. It's like being at the slot machine you see people do it and then they walk away and it pays off or whatever. But,
well, that, for me, that's, I came to the realization after multiple $1 million losses myself that I don't want to play in that game. I'd rather make 20, 50 grand at a clip. A lot more often, as you say. I like to ring the bell also, and I don't like to be wrong. So that's why I can't be a scalper. I can't trade 20 ins and outs in a day because I just can't handle it. It's not good for my psyche. It's not my ego. I just don't like to do it. So I don't mind losing once out of 4 times, but I don't want to lose. Here's the difference. I don't want to lose, 25 out of 100 times. To me, there's a number there that just, starts beating me down. So to me, I'd rather win consistently and trade less and just be in the market less and really wait for those sweet opportunities. And that took a long time, Greg. It took a long time.
I mean, I look at, everybody, if anybody has anything to learn, it's insanity to not, at the end of each quarter, sit down and look at every single trade and see if there was any outliers. Like I mentioned, Taleb, he wants to go crisis hunting. So he goes and buys a bunch of options and, hits a home run every once in a while. But, going hunting for black swans is a lot of work. You want to be relatively delta flat and have asymmetrical risk to either corner. And so, that's the kind of thing that people just don't do the math on. They hear a story. Google's earnings are coming out. All of a sudden, the whole thing turns into something. Right. Or the other thing I should have mentioned in the video is trading errors. When you have a trading error, it's a mistake. It was never even an intent. Right. And so what you do with the trading errors, you close your eyes and you close it at the market. And they always go against you for some reason, which seems impossible because sheer randomness would lend to you could be right or wrong on an error, but they always seem to be against. And I've seen people turn, trading errors into 6-figure losses. Right. A million times. And, I had a $40,000 button push error and, that a year or two ago was painful. But, you gotta get out, you gotta walk away. And, that's the perfect example of ego getting in the way is, something as simple as not being willing to take an error. I mean, you have an error, you close it at the market. Everybody's anchored to that break even. Right? I might as well play it until it comes back up. I would have been long here anyway. The whole justification process. So
it's also the same reason, Greg. It's also the same reason favorites ultimately lose in sports gambling because the masses, they want the favorites to lose most of the time. So that's just the way it works. So.
I paid all that stuff. I used to. When I used
All
to
right,
make
so that's
books.
it. Anything else? I want to check out. I got to go to lacrosse practice here. So, anything else?
I'm beach bound. I'm getting a little, my tan's fading, huh?
All right, separate. Do you want to win or do you want to make money? That's all it comes down to. See you guys.
I think that does it right there.